Lauri Markkanen of the Utah Jazz. Utah's not sure it wants to trade him.
Lauri Markkanen's going to be the top free agent in the 2025 free agency class. The Jazz are getting him locked up now. They have him under their control.
Golden State Warriors' very difficult offseason just continues to get worse. Not only did they lose Klay Thompson to the Dallas Mavericks on a 3-year, $50 million contract, which they would have happily paid, but it doesn't seem like Plan B or Plan C is going all too well. And it's all because they didn't want to offer a player that they're very high on, but it doesn't seem like all the other Golden State Warriors fans agree with this move. So before we get to the content, we are almost at 1 million subscribers. Make sure you subscribe and turn on our notifications to help us get to that mark. Now we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Entering the offseason, the Golden State Warriors had a lot of questions to answer. What was going to become of Klay Thompson and Chris Paul? How would the Golden State Warriors improve upon a team that wasn't even able to make it past the play-in round? What do you do to give Steph Curry one more chance at a championship? And for the Golden State Warriors, there was many directions that they could take. One direction was obviously extending Klay Thompson, which didn't end up happening. But the good news is, since Klay Thompson didn't get extended, that opened up the door for the Golden State Warriors to even make a slight upgrade. You see, the theme of the Golden State Warriors' entire offseason was missed opportunity and just not maximizing their return on their assets. Chris Paul wasn't traded, he was cut, and he ended up signing with the San Antonio Spurs outright. Klay Thompson was signed and traded, but their next big missed opportunity wasn't even necessarily the Warriors' fault. Some Warriors fans are even happy that it didn't happen. But in my opinion, the Golden State Warriors had a remarkable opportunity to make a huge upgrade at the 2 position, bringing in a player that would fit in seamlessly in their offense. A man that could play the 4, the 3, and the 2, Paul George. You can say what you want about Paul George's reputation. You can say the fact that he's going into his age 34 season, but you can't deny the fact that he is a prototypical 3-and-D who could guard multiple positions on the floor and also shot 41.3% from 3 this past year. The Golden State Warriors had a deal in place to bring Paul George in. You could even ask Draymond Green.
I mean, there were other free agency moves, and Paul George is the biggest of the summer, and he is planning to sign a 4-year deal with the 76ers. Also a little salty about that because, as you all know, Paul George was going to come to the Warriors, and we wanted Paul George to come to the Warriors. You know, we always talk about these organizations, what they do for their players and whatnot. And for us to get Paul George, it would have taken a sign and trade, and the Clippers didn't really want to play ball, didn't really want to help him get to where he wanted to go, and so in turn, they get nothing back. And, you know, whereas you could have gotten something back, Paul George walking, they get absolutely nothing back. So these organizations don't always be willing to play ball, and I don't think the Clippers were really willing to play ball for Paul George to get to the Warriors. I kind of understand it. I suppose you don't want him in the same division as you because you may know how that looks if he comes with us. That didn't quite pan out for us, which would have been nice.
Same time, Draymond Green could just be BSing everyone because apparently Draymond Green also has veto power over some players that comes to the Golden State Warriors.
We was just about to make some trades last week, and I told them straight up, like, yo, that trade helped me. Like, it'll help me right now in my career these last couple years and stuff. But I've always spoke to y'all from a place of what's best for this organization. I won't stop now.
Yeah.
That's a bad trade. Like, don't do that trade. Like, I disagree with it. Although it's going to help me right now.
And I honestly believe it, because when Draymond Green was sick and tired of Kevin Durant, he made sure to alienate him 5 years ago. And as a result, Draymond Green has fewer rings on his hand, but still more than the average NBA player. Now look, it's not the Warriors' fault that the Clippers were so petty that they decided to let Paul George sign a maximum contract with the 76ers, as opposed to trading him to the Golden State Warriors and at least receiving assets in return. Which in my mind is still mind-boggling, considering considering the fact that the Los Angeles Clippers are absolutely desperate to make upgrades to their roster, considering that they lost PG and they just have Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, and they also lost Russell Westbrook. Say what you want, but the Clippers clearly downgraded their team, and we made a whole video on it here. But the Warriors made some admirable acquisitions to fill the void of Klay Thompson, replacing the Splash Brother with a Splash Buddy. Some people are even saying that Buddy Hield's an upgrade. Man shot 39% from 3 this past year, averaged 40% from 3 throughout his entire career, is 2 years younger than Klay Thompson, has way less major injuries than Klay Thompson, and could potentially even play better defense than Klay Thompson. But the Warriors didn't stop there. They added Kyle Anderson, DeAnthony Melton, Quinton Post, Lindy Waters, Reese Beekman, Daquan Plowden, and for the most part, that's it for the Warriors roster acquisitions. But there was one individual that the Golden State Warriors announced that they were targeting the moment that Paul George was off of the table for them.
One player that a number of teams have tried to target, Lauri Markkanen of the Utah Jazz. Utah's not sure it wants to trade him, but they have to listen. They've been listening, and a lot of the teams who lost out on Mikal Bridges from Brooklyn have transferred over to trying to see if they can land Lauri Markkanen out of Utah. Golden State is one of those teams.
Have no fear, Warriors fans. You may have lost Klay Thompson, but we're going to get you guys Lauri Markkanen. Could you just imagine if the Warriors pulled this off? Not even Steve Kerr can screw up this lineup. Steph Curry would have Buddy Hield, who's averaged 40% from 3 throughout his entire career, Lauri Markkanen, who averaged 40% from 3 this past season, and himself. Defenses would be scrambling to try to defend his starting lineup. Could you imagine Steve Kerr inserting Lauri Markkanen at the center position alongside Draymond Green, Steph Curry, and Buddy Hield? At the very minimum, it would have been very entertaining to watch. And so the Markkanen watch began. Immediately, 5 days after free agency, we heard that Golden State had a heavily pick-based offer on the table for Lauri Markkanen. It has an offer on the table, and it's substantial for Markkanen. I think offers are heavily pick-based. What complicates it is that the Warriors only have 2 unprotected picks, plus a protected first-round pick. For the Warriors, they have their 2025 to 29 first-round picks, and their 2031 first-round pick. Any future unprotected Golden State Warriors first-round pick is extremely valuable, primarily because Draymond Green's 34 years old and Steph Curry is 36 years old, and he's going to turn 37 in March, meaning that there's only so much time that Steph Curry is still going to be Steph Curry. I mean, you've seen how he's been playing in the Olympics so far, and sure, that could just be a reflection of just Olympic basketball rosters being so star-studded and needing to know how to work with one another, but if you get the Golden State Warriors 2027 unprotected first-round pick and their 2029 unprotected first-round pick, those are clearly very valuable picks, and it's not that far into the future. So you would think that would be a substantial offer for the Utah Jazz, but it gets even more complicated, and that's the fact that Lauri Markkanen's contract was about to expire. So here's the situation here. Next season's trade deadline is February 6th, 8 days before All-Star Weekend. This is hugely important because Markkanen can't be traded for 6 months after signing an extension. 6 months after August 6th happens to be February 6th, which means that after checking with the league office, Markkanen would be eligible to be traded for only 1 day next season, on February 6th and February 6th alone. If an extension is hashed out immediately with the Jazz on August 6th, then he can be traded for 1 day only. But if an extension happens on August 7th or later, Markkanen won't be eligible to be traded until after the 2024-25 season, which is a very unique situation. But what further complicates this is the fact that since Lauri Markkanen's contract already was so small, getting paid only $18 million, then the players that you can offer for Markkanen already limits you significantly. You can't offer a player like Andrew Wiggins for Lauri Markkanen. Rather, you'd have to offer players on rookie scale contracts and possibly even multiple of them. This was even mentioned by Mark Stein. It obviously complicates Jazz efforts to get trade packages in return for Markkanen on the level of Brooklyn's haul from Mikal Bridges when Markkanen is not under team control for more than a season and when his salary is relatively low. They have a much better chance to command a Bridges-style offer filled with future draft picks like New York if Markkanen signed an extension. But what makes things even crazier is Markkanen actually is enjoying his time in Utah and he doesn't want to leave. This all sets the stage for what ended up happening, and it is the Golden State Warriors' worst nightmare, and Warriors fans are a little pissed off about this. So apparently the Warriors' final offer for Lauri Markkanen was was Moses Moody, multiple first-round picks, pick swaps, and second-rounders, but the Golden State Warriors refused to offer Brandon Podziemski. Now, Warriors fans were furious about this, and it's because the Warriors view Brandon Podziemski as their guard of the future. Golden State believes Podziemski has immense upside and will develop into a foundational piece. This is eerily reminiscent of the early 2010s when the Golden State Warriors were interested in trading for Kevin Love for a pick-and-roll partner with Steph Curry, but the Minnesota Timberwolves wanted Klay Thompson in return. The Warriors refused, and the Warriors ended up being a dynasty. So one has to wonder if Mike Dunleavy Jr. feels the same way about Brandon Podziemski here. We would find later on Monday that all indications are Lauri Markkanen won't sign any extension with Utah until after the day he becomes eligible to re-up with the Jazz, which means Markkanen will be off the trade market for the entire season. This could be the domino that opens up trades for players like Jeremy Grant, Brandon Ingram, Cam Johnson, and more. I personally think it's hysterical that Joe Cronin got Jeremy Grant for 1 first-round draft pick. He signed him to an egregious contract extension. Now he wants 2 first-round picks in return for him. But we would finally find out from Shams that all-star Lauri Markkanen and the Utah Jazz are expected to agree to a massive long-term contract extension and sign Wednesday or later, making him untradeable for the entire 2024-25 season. It's so interesting that Lauri Markkanen not only agreed to a contract extension, but he decided to be untradeable for the entire season. And Andy Larson even brings this up. It's worth noting how much this says about how much Markkanen likes Utah. It's a weird basketball situation right now and for the future. He'd surely get the max next year in free agency, and he's choosing to stay and give himself a no trade clause for a year. I know that we don't typically bring this up whenever we make content, but you can't rule out the fact that having a year of stability where you currently live on the team that you've played the best for so far after signing a maximum contract doesn't sound attractive. And as for the Golden State Warriors, what are they going to pivot to now that they lost out on Klay Thompson, now that they lost out on Paul George and Lauri Markkanen? Well, Warriors fans, there's not really a light at the end of the tunnel for you guys, because according to Shams, the Warriors are not interested in players like Brandon Ingram and Zach LaVine. But at the same time, the Warriors are going to be looking around for smaller deals to make to improve their roster. Regardless, I don't really see many smaller deals that can turn the Golden State Warriors from a play-in team to a Western Conference contender. And this is nothing against the Warriors, man. I say this about the Los Angeles Lakers too. You just have to look at the landscape of the NBA right now. OKC Thunder added Alex Caruso and got even better. The Denver Nuggets did lose KCP, added Russell Westbrook. Let's say they got marginally worse. The Minnesota Timberwolves traded for Rob Dillingham, and they were able to keep Tim Connolly. The Clippers got significantly worse. The Dallas Mavericks improved the most out of any team in the Western Conference, and they made it to the NBA Finals last year. The Phoenix Suns added Tyus Jones and Coach Bud, but maybe they improved this year. The New Orleans Pelicans still have Brandon Ingram, and they added DeJounte Murray. The Lakers are probably going to regress this year because they didn't do anything, and we're 6 days into August. I mean, no, they added Bronny James. The Sacramento Kings added DeMar DeRozan. The Houston Rockets improved at the end of the year last year. The Memphis Grizzlies get John Morant back, and the San Antonio Spurs added Chris Paul, and probably will take Wemby off of his minutes restriction from last year. And they added Stephon Castle and Harrison Barnes. And when you consider the fact that the Warriors got even worse than they were last year, but the entire Western Conference is improving this year, Steph Curry's turning 37 years old this year, and the entire Western Conference is getting even stronger, I just don't have much faith in the Golden State Warriors improving from where they were last year. At the end of the day, I want to know if Warriors fans think that retaining Brandon Podziemski over trading him to the Utah Jazz for Lauri Markkanen was worth it. Because on one hand, I would think that the draft picks are enough. I honestly think those future draft picks are going to be so valuable that Brandon Podziemski at this point would be a little unnecessary. At the same time, Utah has all the leverage in this deal. They already have a plethora of future draft picks. Maybe they view Lauri Markkanen as their version of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. We're talking about a team that has 2 first-round picks in the 2025 NBA draft, 2 in the 2026 NBA draft, 4 in the 2027 NBA draft, 2 in the 2028 NBA draft, 4 in the 2029 NBA draft, and they already have a star in Lauri Markkanen. So they do have leverage to sit and wait for the best deal possible. Let me know in the comment section down below if you're a Warriors fan. What do you think about their decision? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.